In Florida, it's not mandatory to provide a breath sample to police at roadside or at the station, but there are penalties for refusing, so maybe it is mandatory. If a person refuses a breath test, then the officers will read something called implied consent. They're implied consent warnings. They'll read them verbatim, and they're meant to inform drivers that the refusal to take a breath test may be used against them in court and will result in a 1-year driver's license suspension. However, just because a person refused a breath test doesn't mean that they'll definitely have their license suspended, because there are a number of things that can go wrong with the implied consent warnings. Those errors can allow us to challenge the implied consent suspension. The police can't ask a person to submit to a urine test unless they have probable cause to believe the person is under the influence of drugs as opposed to alcohol. If there's nothing that indicates to the police that the person is under the influence of drugs, then they have no legal right to ask for a urine sample. In some cases, a driver will admit to have taken their prescription medication that day, and that alone is enough for the police to request a urine sample. That's just one more reason why a driver suspected of DUI should never say anything to the police. If a person doesn't say anything, then they can't be misquoted. If a driver looks or behaves as though they're impaired, but the breath test result gives a result of 0.00, then that could serve as reason enough to suspect drug use and to request a urine test. Cases such as these can also be challenged successfully. The rule for blood samples in Florida is extremely complex. Many requests for blood samples are simply illegal. There are only 2 times when the police can request a blood sample in Florida, and both of them begin with a motor vehicle crash. One is when someone has been killed or has suffered a serious bodily injury in a crash. The police reasonably suspect DUI. The other is when a crash has occurred and the suspect appears for treatment at a hospital, clinic, or other medical facility, and the administration of a breath or urine test is impractical or impossible.